Yep. So to start off this one, I think I need to do a top 10 countdown. You know, because, you know, guns are in the news a lot, especially, you know, oh, you don't need a gun for home defense. Well, see, that's the problem, but crime is also going up. Now, some people think they need an AR-15 for home defense, but they're wrong. A 223 Remington is a terrible home defense round. They're not even legal for deer hunting in most states. So, I'm going to give you the top 10 rounds you should use for home defense. And I think that these are in no particular order, because I just realized I counted up from one, and I wasn't even thinking about that. Number 1, the 4570 Government. Readily available and powerful. What if your house is being broken into by a 2,000-pound American bison? No one considers that. Number 2, the 5070, the 4570's older brother, which might have been rendered illegal in our state because Piggy Pritzker banned all 50 caliber rounds, which might include the 5070 from 1866, but whatever. Number 3, the 30-06 Springfield. Twitter is always going on and on about Nazis, but ironically are woefully unprepared for if a Nazi breaks into their house. But with this round in your trusty M1 Garand, you won't be. Number 4, the 375 H&H, a favorite of Alaskan bear guides. Why not make it a favorite of yours? Number 5, the 405 Winchester. President Theodore Roosevelt claimed it was the best round for hunting lions. No further comment is necessary. Number 6, the 450 Marlin, bringing the 4570 into the 21st century. Because when was the last time you saw crime reports of cattle rustling? They steal cars now. So you need to upgrade your arsenal too. Number 7, the 300 Winchester Magnum. If it can take an elk at 300 yards, it can take a crackhead at 3 yards. Number 8, the 416 Rigby, because man truly is the most dangerous game. Number 9, the 58 caliber mini ball. Being anti-gun and also hating the Confederate flag tend to go hand in hand. But who is going to save Mr. Blue Check when he gets carjacked by Stonewall Jackson? And number 10, the 3030 Winchester. It's the round that has taken the most deer out of any. How could you not have it on this list? All right, now I know what you're all thinking. You know, why no 50 BMG? What am I, a 13-year-old playing Call of Duty? You know? And that is my top 10 rounds for home defense.
I think what we got to do is we got to have like a matrix with 5 objective criteria, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got to have it like
stopping power,
you know, ease of use.
Ease of use. Oh yeah.
Right.
Some of these can have some pretty massive recoil.
Right? Like,
you know,
if you can only get 1 round off, you know, your aim's got to be really good.
If you can only get 1 round off, yeah, you probably want some of these large bore, big game hunting rounds, you know?
So yeah, we got to have some criteria there.
I don't trust a 223 to kill a home intruder. I trust a 450 Marlin to blow their fucking head off. So, you know.
Yep. I think we got to revisit this list and make it more objective. I like this.
See, the beautiful thing about blowing their fucking head off is then there's nobody to go in court and testify how they were just minding their own business in your living room at 3 a.m. when you suddenly burst out, called them the N-word, and then shot them.
Yeah, we need forensic cleanup too, right?
No one to sit there and counter-sue you for legal self-defense.
Exactly.
I mean, you know. Oh, you know what's actually something I thought of, especially because we live in a blue state? You know musket for home defense copy pasta. I own a musket for home defense, just as the founding fathers intended. Knowing several DAs in this country, if you actually did use a flintlock musket for self-defense, you'd probably get charged with like cruelty or excessive use of force when you like blow a golf ball sized hole in them or stab them with a triangle bayonet. They'd probably stand up there going, "Oh yeah, excessive use of force. Why didn't you use an AR-15 instead of a gun from 1792?
They'll be crying for you to
Yeah.
use the assault rifle.
Yep. Please use the assault rifle on this innocent victim." You know. But actually, gun control groups now make me think of the main topic I was thinking of. And I just kind of thought about this several months back, so I wrote all this down. You see a lot of people, you know, online, in real life, you see politicians campaigning on it. Get big money out of politics. But I have to wonder, get big money out of politics. Is it a realistic goal or just a catchy phrase people say? You know, many people say it. You know, the internet loves saying things that they know people want to hear, right? So like I recall a thread about people who would allegedly happily pay $20 for a McDonald's meal if it meant people were being paid fairly. We all know they don't mean it.
Garbage.
Yeah, garbage. You're just saying what people want to hear. But this seems to be one of these things people genuinely believe, mostly because it requires little to no effort on their part. So, you know, the question is, what does get big money out of politics actually mean? And from what I understand, it usually means capping donation amounts to candidates so entities with a lot of capital can't unfairly influence elections or political decisions. Okay, well, first off, here's a problem a lot of people who say this turn a blind eye to. So, which entities are allowed the big donations? Surely it would be unfair to say a union should get unlimited donations, but a business shouldn't. So then what happens? Do we ban contributions from both? Actually, this is something we'll explore a little further later, so keep that question in mind. Another point that is also valid to the previous example. When people say that, are they merely acting in their own biases? Take, for example, and this is perfect segue, the National Rifle Association and Everytown for Gun Safety. It seems whenever the debate comes up, one of those organizations, the NRA, is called Big Money. And the other, Everytown, is billed as a grassroots campaign. So when people say, get big money out of politics, are they merely just acting on their own biases? You know, well, the organization I agree with, you know, fights the gun lobby and stands up to the NRA's big corporate donors. We need to get their big money out of politics. But of course you could say to that person, what is the substantial difference between the NRA and Everytown for Gun Safety? Both tend to be or act as political action committees with the ability to give millions of dollars to candidates or act in their favor against their opponent. Essentially, you know, basically for many people, it comes down to everyone I disagree with is big money.
That's a good point.
Also, Everytown for Gun Safety was founded by Michael Bloomberg. So, you know.
It's also big money.
Grassroots campaign, huh? You know. But, let's see. Here's also another even bigger elephant in the room that has actual constitutional repercussions. Why isn't media ever considered big money? Media companies indirectly give millions of dollars to candidates and political causes and absolutely hold the power to influence elections. And like what I mean by this is, consider how much a candidate would pay for a campaign ad on a TV news channel.
Airtime.
If this channel chose to run news stories in their favor or against their opponent, they're essentially giving them ads for free.
Big money.
A private company would call this good PR, and there are approximate dollar amounts that can be placed on this. Like, I don't know, is there like an actuarial value?
There is, yeah. Like the space to talk, the campaign space, the ad space, being able to talk on the TV show itself of like a Good Morning America, for example, that's worth even more than an ad. Like, you can't even really buy that, but it is worth money because it gets in front of a certain number of eyeballs, and there is a dollar value to that.
You know,
Well, I was gonna say, I just had one little comment to make about what you said about TV shows and stuff. I feel like for right now that might be the case, but over time people are trusting that media less and less. And let's face it,
True.
who watches TV nowadays? Older people.
Yeah.
That generation, it's the equivalent of reading a newspaper. Not many. I mean, occasionally, but most people don't.
I think it does still translate to like even modern like streaming services though, like campaign ads
Well,
that are shown on modern streaming services.
That, or you could argue, what if a social media platform, Facebook, Twitter, and the like, start all of a sudden propping up, and they say, oh, the ads are just random or however, but in reality they're propping up ads for that. That would be the new version of that. Or propping up, Fox News or CNN's Facebook or Twitter pages,
or the sound bites of a certain candidate speaking.
Mhm.
versus
What if
another.
Elon Musk didn't buy Twitter and then unban Trump?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like different
Party.
medium, same concept. Like
Basically, almost the major party nominee. So
yeah.
different medium, same concept.
Well, actually, that's an interesting thing. But if someone, let's say, did not like a politician, wherein lies the difference between a PAC, a political action committee, paying to have flyers printed and mailed, and a news station running a story, candidate bad? Wherein lies the substantial difference? And funny enough, some may say the latter is worse because it's not obviously disclosed that there's a political aim to it. A news agency can bill itself as news, in quotes, and does not have to disclose sponsors or biases. Think about it. How many of the major networks will stand up there and call themselves unbiased, fair and balanced?
All of them are
You're
pretending.
entering the no spin zone.
Yeah, all of them are pretending.
Think about that. So then the issue becomes how to stop this without violating the First Amendment. I don't think you can.
I don't think it's possible either.
No. Next, in fact, you just talked about this, both of you. Social media is a similar problem. Same thing. Banning people that deviate from your narrative, manipulating algorithms so certain things are seen or unseen, making rules that benefit only one side, the refusal to crack down on certain bot or spam accounts, biased fact checking. Just like news, social media has the ability to give millions of dollars equivalent to a candidate without physically giving them a cent.
Yeah, through exposure, through showing, their 8-second soundbite of saying something that sounds good out of context to a million viewers, or maybe an 8-second soundbite of them saying something bad, or of their opponent saying something bad.
Mm-hmm. So now how do you fairly regulate that?
Oh, you can't. Government didn't hire enough IT people.
you've already lost at that point. I think you have to the focus should be making sure people are intelligent
Nah, it's
and
over.
educated
It's
enough
over.
to.
It's over.
It's not that hard.
It's really. I
It's
think
over.
Nuance.
It's over. I'm sorry, man. Like, I know you've got the hope. But
Mhm.
It's over.
But-
They tried in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. They eat those pathos logos, like all that stuff. It didn't work. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm
I
sorry.
remember it. I bet if we went to our 10-year class reunion and asked 100 people about that, how many people would remember that lesson?
Or
It was
maybe
in,
they remember it, but they don't actually
freshman
apply
year
it.
English class. I
Well, I don't
distinctly
think it's
remember
one
it.
lesson.
I
think
still
it's
have my
an
notes.
Education.
Yeah, it
Comprehensive education.
It is.
Right.
And we just
English class
magically
teaches
forget.
you that stuff.
History class.
government.
Actually, one of the things I really
Science
appreciated about our school district, our 8th grade, or it might have just been our teacher, had an entire like 2-week long unit on propaganda
Yeah, that's
and
really
certain
nice.
types of propaganda. That was good. One of our assignments was to create our own propaganda, but that was a good lesson. But, well, now there also exists the issue of entities donating to candidates and getting favorable treatment in return. Again, it kind of opens up the same argument with personal biases. Like, you can't tell the Thin Blue Line Foundation donating to candidate X's campaign and later seek legislation that supports them is allowed, but Black Lives Matter doing the same for candidate Y is them trying to buy politicians. So again, we have that issue of it's only wrong when the people I don't like do it.
I think you're right.
But let's say we can look past that. Let's say all donations directly to politicians must be anonymous. You can donate as much as you like, but you cannot disclose it was you.
I think that's almost worse.
Okay, well, it sounds like a good idea. Candidates can use the money however they see fit without pandering to the donor. Maybe,
interesting.
Well,
I mean, how anonymous can it really be? Like, you see a million, you have like a robust conversation. They keep saying, right, with the potential donor, and then tomorrow you see $1 million in your account. Like, how do real anonymous, right? Like, how we.
Well, that's also the thing is, if that were the case, even like, let's say it wasn't that, I'm living in a fantasy world there, but couldn't these entities show their support in other ways, like buying campaign ads on YouTube, TV, or the radio, print flyers, and you'll see at the bottom, paid for by corn farmers of America or something,
Yeah, and it can be argued almost that, like, being able to do that is, like, a fundamental right.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't restrict someone's ability to donate basically all their money if they wanted to a certain candidate to help express their views. Right?
Extremely unpopular opinion. This is what's going to get this video taken down. I agree with the Citizens United decision.
Yeah, I don't know what that
I
is, but
agree.
That's,
I actually have an entire thing about a lot of people in the United States misunderstand what a corporation is.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, here it is. But we can actually get into that in a minute once I'm done with this rant. But, so take it a step further, though, going back, like, let's say nobody, whether an individual or group, may donate over $500. Well, even that doesn't solve the problem because the big money will go just the indirect route. It'll be like the Plumbers Union Local 112 endorses and encourages donations to candidate A. And it won't stop them from paying for unofficial ad campaigns. But then, like, well, what if we ban endorsements altogether? Can't have a candidate show you favor if they don't know you supported them in the first place. But here we are back at the First Amendment issue. So it's kind of like, now you see how this can quickly become a slippery slope to the point it, ironically, disadvantages the common man. These rules keep getting more and more specific and fail to address the indirect ways of support or encounter free speech issues. So, I'll also note, because people will say something as a corporation, will say something, but I messed that up. A side note I wrote on the bottom, because people will say something about this, and this is actually what I'm going to get into with my Citizens United thing, is a corporation is defined as a group of people acting as a single entity.
Yep.
That is literally the legal definition of a corporation. Think about it. The non-profit corporations, such as the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, are corporations.
Yeah, literally every nonprofit is a nonprofit corporation.
Yeah.
You cannot have a nonprofit just on its own. It is a corporation.
So no enlightened teenagers banning donations from corporations is not some sort of miracle solution. Please, you're not smarter than everyone else. D's don't get degrees. Stay in school.
D's do get degrees, but do stay in school.
Well, yeah. But all in all, I think the sentiment, while initially sounding like a good idea, get big money out of politics doesn't hold up to further scrutiny.
Internet meme.
Yep.
Official
Also,
rule.
I just wrote in purple ink at the bottom.
Ooh, this is special.
This is added later. Another note, it is possible that many people like to think of their side as good and the other side as the party of corruption or out of touch with the common man.
Hmm.
So I wonder if they say things like get big money out of politics, falsely thinking that only the opposing side will be affected.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
could be kind of a shooting yourself in the foot kind of.
I definitely see people thinking like, oh, well, this party, the opposing party of mine, of course, is all corrupt. So getting big money out of politics will only affect them. Bullshit, bullshit.
And you might bring this up later, but like, yeah, you touched on it a little bit. Every nonprofit is a corporation. Like, nonprofit is just a special designation.
Is it
by
all
the
of them
IRS.
or most of them?
Every single one. I know this because I'm trying to make a nonprofit myself. You need to incorporate first, then you can get nonprofit status. So it's like a character attribute that you add on to an existing corporation. It's a 501c3 exemption. Now there's also 501c4. 501c4 is if you want to lobby. 501c3 is if you don't want to lobby. You just want to fall under one of the other classifications like education or civics, other things like that. So every corporation that is a nonprofit, like every nonprofit is a corporation first, like legally, before it even becomes a nonprofit. And so if we get into like getting big money out of politics, I think that's logistically and physically impossible because, we talk about how the United States is the land of corporations. Every single, that means you're trying to ban the existence of a 501c4 or a 501c3. You're trying to ban the existence of being
Susan G. Komen.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I know people have gone on these rants before, but I think Susan G. Komen is mostly about awareness. Like, it doesn't really do anything.
I haven't read about them.
Some people have gone on rants, but I've never really looked into it beyond that. So I can't really spout an opinion on it.
Yeah, I can't. I have no idea what's going
Yeah.
on there.
But it does sound like a really good straw man to say oh, you're against corporations, so you hate Susan G. Komen for the cure.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like if you don't like it, you can start your own 501c3. It's not even that hard. Like, you could go online and figure it out yourself. It won't cost that much money. It'll just cost you a lot of time. Now, most people don't actually want to invest that time, or the more likely, I would say, the more benign argument I'd like to say is there's already an organization doing what you want. So you should probably volunteer for them or donate to them. Or you could start your own if you don't like the way they're doing it. You could start your own and then run something with them. You could take money from them too and do stuff yourself. You are the mechanisms that the big money have, you have as well, right? I mean, you might not actually have the money, but you can start these organizations too. Nothing's stopping you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I was just going to say, to your point about big money out of politics, for a couple things. First of all, I completely agree with what you said. Second of all, I agree with the whole, it's always, it's my side or the other side. But then, even if you're not looking at it that way, and you're looking at it more from, you do have large entities, regardless of if you can stop the money or not.
Mm-hmm.
Like the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. It was a month and a half after they stopped the rail workers from striking.
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember we wanted to do a whole recording on that.
Maybe we could at some point, but the politicians were absolutely silent on it, right? And it happened right after, and it was a lot of the things they were talking about. And I remember even seeing at the time interviews with just right before it happened. So the thing is there any way you can stop, very powerful corporations? I'm not saying they're all bad. Not all corporations are the same, but some of these very powerful ones trying to implement policies that are screwing over the working people.
You can't, and here's my analogy that I'm going to use here. You can't, unfortunately, for the same reason, you can't put some people in prison even though they really should be. Because it's not about putting that person in prison even though they really should be. It's about, what if the person was innocent, right? Because that's way, way worse.
Mm-hmm.
right? It's the same thing.
It's
It's
the
like
thing, like, we'd rather set 1,000 murderers free than
Than
have
put
one
one.
person be punished.
yeah,
One
it's the
innocent
same
person
thing,
be
right?
punished.
We would rather like allow a million. It's not a million, but we'd rather allow like 100 or 1,000 big corporations to control the law rather than like silence one, minority voice, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the argument being made. Now, as to whether that has any merit, because that's not logistically how money works, is a different story. But I think that's the impetus behind it, as
Well,
one of my colleagues likes to say.
And the thing I want to point out is my side or the other side, at least with that issue, it was bipartisan that they
Mhm.
implemented that worker strike. So I guess I'm just trying to think like there's nothing at all that can be done within the realm of the First Amendment legality to even reduce
Oh, you can
garbage
reduce.
policies. Almost in some cases, not all,
Mhm.
dystopian, you
Yeah.
know, garbage policies, allowing corporations, again, big ones, to get away with absolute garbage things. And again, I want to be 100% clear. I'm not saying all corporations do this, but some big ones most definitely do. Amazon and Walmart come to mind.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm not saying you can't.
They're like the
reduce it.
poster children for like the evil corporation, you know?
They're nice,
Exactly.
yeah, they're nice poster children. Like, but I'm not saying you can't reduce, but you can't do it by, for example, getting rid of the idea of the 501c4 organization. Like, that's not the way to do it, because that's just going to be, that's trying to eliminate a fundamental right from everyone. You have to do it. You have to do it, I think, by actually starting rival organizations.
Mhm.
Like, you have to do it by showing, the cronyism going on. You have to do it by showing a history, a pattern of like the corrupt things they do, disclosing the size of donations versus the impact of the laws that end up getting
Mhm.
passed, all the bills that keep dying in committee that are actually good for the people. Like, you have to do the hard work. You have to tell the story.
The common theme is the solution is more speech, not less.
Yeah, the solution is you just have a louder voice than that corporation, because
A counter voice, basically.
yeah, you have a counter voice, because in theory, while they have more money, you have more numbers, right? Let's not forget that you do have more numbers in theory, right?
And you have just as much of a right to go print flyers as
Yeah,
they do.
and you
know?
can show up to these Senate committees, and if you've seen one of these, I mean, I showed you that video, I think, of the right to repair, where the lobbyists for like CompTIA, like, they could not answer those questions, right? Like, the senators would ask them questions like, I can repair my car at like a dealership, like an authorized dealership, a Jiffy Lube, or my friend Eddie. Why can't I do that with my iPad? And the lobbyist just stuttered. Like, the lobbyist that was like fighting right to repair just said like, I think this is too complex of an issue. I think we need to have robust conversations later. Just like code speak for let me give you a bribe later. Like, it was so obvious.
Mhm.
Like, they were losing that argument very hard. Now, the bill still died in committee later because, of course, they had robust conversations and paid them off later. But now we know about it, right? Just expose that video a million times. Like, keep showing up to these committees so that way there's 1,000 of you and only like 3 of them.
Mhm.
Like, the solution, like you mentioned, is more speech, right? More speech to drown out the corporate nonsense, as we so call it, with our own corporate nonsense, really,
Mhm.
actually.
And humor also.
And humor,
Well,
right? Like, we laugh at it. We're like, look at them. They're sending these 3 like old bald people who don't like their jobs reading off of a script to lobby against this bill. Here I am. I'm a small business owner. I have passion. I know this issue. I could even argue for their side better too, because I actually care about this issue. But I'm on this side.
I'm
for example.
so educated on this issue, I could argue for their side.
right.
You know?
Like, it's like you gotta do the hard work. You gotta start your own organizations, and you gotta do. Now, of course, most people don't have the money, so they can't start those organizations.
Well-
So it's up to that one person or 2 people in the community to do it.
And that's where I was just gonna. It's a perfect thing. What I was gonna say next. Then why don't people do it? And then is it a catch-22 of, let's face it, a lot of people are struggling financially nowadays. People are so everyone's so busy working, like there's no time, and
Yeah.
you just gotta kind of suck it up and deal with it the way it is. And
Yep.
it's a collective it's a catch-22 basically.
It basically is, right? So then, at the end of the day, like, what you end up, like I said, it's this David versus Goliath. Except I think one thing that we forget is there's like 1,000 Davids versus 1 Goliath.
Mhm.
So if all 1,000 Davids just give like $10 to one David that happens to have some extra free time, or maybe is got lucky, won the lotto, is like a little bit more free with what they can do in life. You know, that one person can represent the 1,000 Davids against that one Goliath, right? I think that's the idea. I think that's the way forward. I don't know if somebody, maybe lobbyists, right, have better, lobbyists work for both sides. Like, you can hire a lobbyist to work for you, and
That's also a thing too, where people say ban lobbying, but they don't realize, well, wait a minute, lobbyists can work for my side too.
yeah,
Like, people don't realize, like, for example, global warming, as it was known back then, was actually brought to the attention of the US government due to lobbying. So, you know, it's like people imagine like lobbying, oh, evil, but then they don't realize, well, wait a minute, my side lobbies too.
yeah, your side can lobby. Like, if you're having a tough time trying to get a bill past one chamber of like the state Congress, like, if talking to all your Congress people, by the way, one of the things you just talk to your local representative. They will actually listen to you. Like the state representative, like like the Congress, like not the federal Congress, that person, you might try to reach out to them too. If you get a meeting with them, let me know how you did that. Usually you need to hire a lobbyist to actually do that, to get that kind of meeting going. But like, yeah, do that. Like, if you find out that's not enough, then you hire the lobbyist, and you find out, like, okay, what do we need to do to get this bill forward, to get this into law? Like, there are things that the common man can do. It just requires a lot of us, because, you know, we're ants. We don't have the money individually, but we do have the money collectively. So, you know, I mean, how long until we have the money collectively and all that's taken away from us too is a different issue, but for now we do have it. So, you know, start your own organizations or join existing ones. That's what you have to do. You have to do the hard thing. You have to drive out there, show up to when that bill is happening, or, you know, if you're lucky enough that that bill has already gone to one of the chambers of Congress. But if it hasn't even gotten there yet, you got to start collecting signatures. You have to help draft the bill with back and forth emails with your congressman, right? Like, it's not easy. It's just hard work is the solution.
Yep. So, I guess what I'll say too, well, not to add to that, I don't know, are you done?
I'm done. I talk too much.
Okay. I'll say my Citizens United agreement, yeah, that like money is free speech. Okay, so wait, so you're telling me that all the corporation needs to do to get around this rage from the Twitteroids is go buy a newspaper and do it under the guise of journalism?
Probably.
You know, so
Yeah,
okay,
a
so
tool is a tool, right? Like,
it's kind of interesting how, you know, Citizens United was wrong. Well, wait a minute. Don't you see how if it was the opposite, then you could face almost greater deception? Because then, like I said, all they'd have to do is go buy a newspaper. And now we can, instead of donating to a campaign, just give some biased reporting, you know? But like I said, you know, it goes back to get big money out of politics. I don't think it's a realistic goal. I think it's just a catchphrase that Twitteroids repeat because they want to feel good about themselves and they see the other side as the enemy.
I don't think it fixes the core issue either. Like, if you want to advance your side, it will take either money or effort. Like those things I mentioned, talking to your congressman, drafting bills, getting people to support you. Like, you can either do that hard work or you can pay money for someone else to do it. Like, it's not easy to change law. Like, it's gonna cost money. Like, if we start thinking of it less as like bribery and think of it more like, for example, if you're trying to build a house, right? Like, it's gonna take a lot of money or a lot of time and special skills, right? It's the same thing with like trying to get a law passed. It's just a big project that requires a lot of money, regardless of which side.
Yeah. Fireworks, because we're recording this the evening of July 3rd. Yep. Anyone else got anything?
Well, the one thing I thought about adding was just what about old-fashioned, but collectively, but when I say old-fashioned, because I feel like people were more likely to do it years, even like say a century ago, massive strikes. Like,
oh, I love that. Bring them
against
back.
the big like Amazon, Walmart, you know, garbage working conditions, you know, garbage pay, you know, asking
The
why,
Teamster strike
you
happened?
know,
They were threatening it.
That, you know, or like the rail workers, like what if, even if they said, oh, they're preventing, it's like, screw it, we're just not gonna show up, what are you gonna do? Like,
You know what's
the
interesting?
trains
That
aren't
gets
gonna
into a
run.
whole other thing where I just thought of, because you said the strike blocking was kind of bipartisan. And I actually started thinking, okay, you could imagine the right blocking a strike, because, you know, yeah, pro-business, whatever. This is a whole separate rant, but there is actually a very strong leftist case for union busting.
Really?
And it has to do with, go back to, we never uploaded it, but I'm going to upload it. Fuck it, this podcast has already gone political. But it has to do with positive rights. But so there is actually a very strong leftist case for union busting. But that's a whole nother rant that I can go on for like half an hour.
that, and I was
I'd like to hear it because I don't.
All right,
know.
then we'll do it next. But, you know, we'll do it next. All right.
No, I mean I think that was pretty much it for this one. So.
Well, if no one has anything else, speaking of crime, it'll make you want to get some high-powered hunting rifles. Check out HeyJackass.com, tracking Chicago crime. And remember, non-consensual pelvic exams are legal in some states for the purpose of teaching medical students.
Non-consensual.
Yep, non-consensual.
On
Like,
cadavers?
If you're a no,
I'm sorry.
like
wait.
on women undergoing procedures. If you're in a teaching hospital, it's legal in like 21 states.
What do you mean non-consensual? How does that happen?
They do it while you're under anesthesia.
But do you sign some long ass waiver beforehand saying that this could be part of it?
Potentially, but I've also heard a lot of people argue that's kind of deceptive because, you know, not a lot of people understand legalese and that.
How is it less deceptive than just not putting it in there in writing, though?
I mean, I don't know, but
Just put it in writing.
well, I've heard it. People throw non-consensual around, so I assume there might not be a thing. But either way, if you're ever bored looking for something to be legitimately outraged at and not, you know, who's racist this week, look into that because that's really wrong that we allow that in America today.
It's really wrong that it's not in big font on the first page.
Yeah.
I think that's the issue.
Even then, I think there's also a thing of like, unless you explicitly volunteer using real live patients for medical training is kind of really wrong to me, you know?
And then you can get into iffy territory where it's like, I mean, we'll give you a discount on the procedure if you allow it, you know?
Yeah,
It's getting,
you know,
getting
so-
weird, you know?
So, you know, yep.
bring that to the attention of some radical feminists and watch them explode. Like
They have to actually get up and do
You're
something.
gonna
See, that's the problem.
Oh,
The
just
problem, though, is
watch
that's
it
a
break down.
real, actual problem, and they can't just, you know...
They can't yell at it
No, that's
to
my
make
point.
it
They
happen.
won't know what to do with it.
Yeah,
It'd be
they can't
entertaining.
just march with vagina hats so it goes away. You know, they can't
Not
blame...
that that was a strategy.
They can't blame white men for it because it's like, well, you know,
Well, they could.
they
They
could,
would.
You can blame
They would.
one.
you know.
Yeah.
But yes, truly an abomination. So, yeah.
I think it should at least be disclosed in big font on the first page.
Mm-hmm.
That is-
Yep.